Today we're doing Mind Our Manners, Mind Your Manners, and we're going to have Ms. Lisa Waldrop from Media and Communications and Ms. Amy Henderson from Career Services is here with us to talk to you about manners and etiquette and all that kind of good stuff that they're going to take care of. We do have lunch for you, so it's myself, Ms. Nika, and Ms. Veronica. We're going to wait on you today. We're going to be your servers. Don't get crazy. Don't get crazy, okay? All right, and so we have options of turkey, ham, and roast beef sandwiches for you. So we'll come around and get your drink order and your sandwich order. Now, here's the rule of thumb. Your mama don't work here. I know I'm like a mother to several of you in here, but I'm not your mama. She don't work here, okay? Clean up after yourself. If you make a mess, clean it up, all right? Is that a deal? All right. So I'll turn it over to them and we'll get going, all right?
Okay. Hi. How are you?
Good.
Good. Yay. I'm so glad that you all. I'm going to kind of wander around because that's going to get right in my eyeball, and that's not really how I can effectively deliver messages this afternoon. So my name is Lisa Waldrop. I work in media here, and basically that is just a fancy way of saying I know everything that goes on Facebook and Instagram, and I can tell you what ads we have in the paper. That's pretty much what being in media and communication here at the college means. Amy works in career services here at the college as well, and today we're going to throw a lot of information at you. We're going to throw a lot of information at you that you may already know. We might throw some things at you that you don't. Whatever the case may be, we hope that you will leave here today thinking about something different, thinking differently about how you treat one another, thinking differently about how you approach the world and what everyone's impression of you is. We want to make sure that what you put out there is the most positive image of yourself that you possibly can. That's our goal here today, is so that when you go out through Shelton State to people that meet you and know you and encounter you, we want them to see what a professional you are and how much you have to offer, both personally and professionally. Okay? Go ahead and I'll man the PowerPoint over there if you want to start first. I think the career services slide is first.
Okay, so basically, like Lisa said, the mission of the Career Services Center is to give students and alumni, so even if you're an alumni, the opportunity and guidance to explore and choose their career paths and to prepare them for the workforce, which is where you're all going to want to go. So how many of you have a trust fund, and after this, maybe, are you guys basketball players? Okay, so maybe you're basketball players, maybe you're in school here, and you're just here for the fun of it, and you don't have to work when you graduate. Anybody? Okay, so all of you are people that are going to go out into the workforce. You're going to have to get a job and do something with your life. Probably most of you want to do something with your life. Maybe it's you want to help people and that's your motivation, or maybe you want that house, the car, the whatever the thing is that you want. So you're going to want money to be able to do that. So that's the mission of the Career Center. But what we want to talk to y'all about today is impressions. Every time I see you guys in the hallway, every time you walk into an office, you are making an impression. So an impression is just basically a feeling that you have about someone or something that you have seen but you don't know very well. But a first impression is opinions that you form immediately before even thinking anything through. So when I walked in the room, when Lisa walked in the room, when you met each other for the first time, before you got to know somebody, you knew within about 5 seconds, do I like this person or not? What do I think about this person? It's not always a fair assumption. So when we do make first impressions, we want you guys to make good impressions, lasting impressions. I know that probably your coach would say, for those of you who are athletes, that they want people, staff on campus to say that you're polite, right? I know he preaches that. Polite, doing the right thing, those kind of things. And other students too that are in the room, you really want to think about those things when you are interacting with faculty and staff, because sometimes, sweetness attracts. Being sweet to someone is often a very good thing, because a lot of times they will do a lot more for you than someone that is very demanding. But with the first impression, the main thing I can tell you, and you are all on time today, is do not be late. How many of y'all are late all the time? Industry tells us that the number one thing that they are having problems with, not necessarily with students, but everyone in their organization, is that they are late. They're not on time, and when they get to work, they don't always work while they're on time. And when they're there, they're not ready. They're not ready to work. They don't have what they need to do their jobs. We're going to talk now about greeting properly. Did you do this in your?
I can, we can do it. This is, yes, you want to go ahead and do that one?
Or you want to?
Go ahead.
Okay. You'll do it?
Sure, we can.
Okay. So how many of you know how to greet someone? Come on up. You know, come on. Okay, so how would we greet each other? And your name is? Kayla? And what's my name? Amy. Good try though. Okay. So, how would you, in this, Miss Lisa, this is Miss Lisa's slide, but you really want to speak clearly, with your head up. You don't want to, you've seen those students, and I've had them in my office, and you've seen them around in your classes that they talk like this, and this is really all you're going to get out of them. You did a good job keeping your head up and remembering the names of the people that you meet. It's very important, and I, for one, am horrible at this. Now, I'm going to remember your faces when I see you in the hall. I'm not going to remember your name. I'm really bad at that, but that is one thing that makes people feel oh so special. If you can remember their name, if you can remember who they are and actually greet them like that. Introduce yourself using your first and last name. So hello, I'm Calix. Gray. What? Ray. I think I'm getting old. Here he's going. And so, good morning. My name is Calix Ray, and I'm here to see Mr. Smith. So tell why you are here. Tell why you're somewhere, so that people will know, right? And respond appropriately. How are you today? I'm happy to meet with you. Thank you for seeing me today. You always want to thank people too, and you always want to respond appropriately when we're greeting people. So when you meet somebody too, you talk about handshakes later, don't you?
You can, but go ahead with
Okay.
your part, because they're going to need it.
Okay, so handshakes. So when we shake hands, you know what really drives me nuts about, because we're in the middle of that. You know what drives me nuts about shaking a man's hand? That, like they're scared to shake my hand. It's like, that.
Women are not going to break. Watch.
Look at this. Can you see?
Here we go. You don't have to be afraid to put your hand out there and shake it, and it doesn't matter. I know you just started eating, so don't do this right now. But in a few moments, we'll do that, and I'm going to hold your hand for just a second, okay? But you can see, there's nothing timid about this. This alone communicates confidence. If I am timid about how I approach him, then that automatically communicates something totally nonverbal. We're going to talk about nonverbal communication in just a moment, but if I look him in the eye, I say, hi, how are you? And I shake his hand. It says here, 2 to 3 times, 1, 2, 3, like don't shake his arm off. 2 or 3 times right there, like you would greet someone that you were happy to see. Say your name, and then you can let go. Have you ever been shaking someone's hand and they hold it just a little bit too long? Don't be that person. Just be willing to let go and step away and carry on that conversation, okay? Go ahead. I think
No, absolutely, but that whole, you can do it.
You're great. Let's take my hand. You did too.
Don't be that person that puts the weak handshake out there either. Shakes of, y'all had that handshake and you're like, what do you do with that? So you want to have that firm handshake, like Lisa said, 2 or 3 times, and then you're done with the handshake. So handshakes are very important to me. Like, I will tell you, I can tell if I like you or not with a handshake. I really can. There are people that have worked here before, and I've even said, somebody's like, well, what do you think? I'm like, that's not going to work out. The handshake was like a wet noodle. Not going to do. So, nonverbal communication. How you stand, what is your body posture? I can, like all of you are eating now, but you can obviously tell by someone if they're closed off, if they have their hands crossed, that's somebody that's probably not open to new conversations, talking to other people. That's not good. Handshake and a smile. A lot of times, just a smile at people will go a long way. Even in the hallways, when you're walking down the hallway, it just spreads joy. So with those nonverbal communications, it can tell, I'm not happy to be here, I'm happy to be here, I enjoy being here, I want to be here with you today. You can tell from that handshake, from the smile, just a lot of things about people. Facial expression also, and engagement. So if I'm talking to you and you're like, who cares, right? I know that that's what you're thinking. But at the same time, some of you are just here for the subway, I get it. But some of you are actually here being attentive, knowing, wanting to know more about engagement.
Well, and I just want to tell you, sometimes these sorts of things get past you and you don't even realize that they're happening. And I'll give you an example that happened about 5 minutes ago. Mrs. Miner back here in the back, she works here in our Office of Disability Services. It is still called that, right? Okay. She works in our Office of Disability Services. She's joining us this afternoon. And when I passed her in the hall, she said, I don't know how you have that much energy. Well, let me tell you something. Today is not my day. It has just been a hard day. I have not, different things have happened. It's been frustrating, whatever. But because I stood there and chatted with her in the hall and spoke with her with energy in my voice, the perception was that it was a good day. I had some energy. I was on top of things. That is not the case today. But that's the sort of thing you convey without ever even realizing it. So it's really important that you establish some of these things just as habits, because that's what leads. We do things sometimes because it's just what we're accustomed to doing. So we need to make certain that all of these things that Amy and I are covering with you today are things that just become part of your everyday habits. Okay?
These things are really the things in the workforce. You're going to get a good education, right? So you're going to know this technical skills or whatever you need to do the job that you have when you graduate from Shelton or four-year school or whatever you're in is, right? But if you don't do some of these are the things that get people ahead. If you're one of those people that doesn't, like Lisa may not have been having the best day, but she's going to come in here just because that's who she is and give you everything that she has and give you all of her energy that maybe she doesn't even have to give right now. But those are the people that can turn it off, turn it on, do these things in the workforce, especially if you're in sales or marketing or something like that, which a lot of students start out in. But you know what? In every job, even here, my job is not sales, but at the end of the day, all of our job is to recruit students and to sell Shelton externally. So we all have to do that. So in every job that you have, it's going to have at least some kind of sales or marketing component.
One of my very favorite quotes is, your mood does not determine your manners. And that is so true. It shouldn't. It does sometimes, but it shouldn't. Your mood cannot determine your manners. And so keep that in mind. No matter what kind of day you're having, no matter what's going on, all of these things really do boil down to manners. It boils down to knowing the difference between what works well for you and works to your advantage and what really places you at a terrible disadvantage. Don't handicap yourself with things you can control. Okay?
Okay, so this kind of goes along with what I was saying. Those extra things you do really can help you out in the workplace to advance. Networking is one of the biggest things you can do when we're talking about handshakes, remembering people's names, remembering who people are. And you know what? If you are one of those people like me that is bad at remembering names, you can say something like, hey, you know what? I know I met you in the Student Success Seminar, and I am sorry that I totally forgot your name. Would you tell me your name again? You know, let them know that you know where you knew them from, because I am one of those bad people that are bad with names. But it does make people feel special if you can remember it. But if you can't, let them know where you know them from and ask for their name again. But 70% of job seekers find jobs through contacts. Who are people in your network? What'd you say?
Coach.
Everybody here? Yep, coaches. Everybody else here? Who else?
Abby Grace, you used me today as one. What did you ask me this morning? Yeah. Your reference, that's how, you asked me this morning about using me as Abby Grace is an ambassador, and I'm her sponsor, and we talked this morning about something she's applying for, and she used me as a reference. Abby Grace is a killer ambassador. She has networked, she's working really hard, and she has made a huge impression, and so that is an opportunity to network through me, because I know her work ethic. That's the kind of thing that you have to think about all the time when you're here in school.
Because not only, I know you mentioned your coaches, who are probably the person you're closest to here at the school, right? But also, who else would be? What about your instructors? Okay, so if you're doing those things you need to be doing in class, your own time, you're paying attention, you're turning your work in, all of those marketable skills, and guess what? Your instructors, both here and if you transfer, are going to know about jobs that aren't necessarily even posted. A lot of places do have to post their jobs because of requirements and regulations, but some don't. And guess what else your network can do for you? They can make that phone call and they can say, hey, this person is applying for this job. Please at least look at their resume. And if that happens for you, you're at least hopefully going to get an interview from that. So be very mindful of your network. Your network is who you're sitting around at a lunch or a dinner. Your network is your instructors, staff, people in your community. You have a huge network. Use it, because that is one of the main things you can do in your search to get a job. I will tell you that this is probably the most important thing that I can tell you you can do to make your job search shorter when you leave any institution.
All right, so this slide, I want to just preface this by saying there is virtually nothing appearance-wise that shocks me. There really isn't, or offends me, really. You have a perfect right to be who you are with piercings, tattoos, your clothes, whatever, but that does communicate something with what you do. You communicate something with what you're wearing. You can communicate a variety of things, that you're creative. You can communicate that you like something in particular. It just shouldn't work as a disadvantage. You can still be you, but just make sure that those sorts of things keep the focus on you and not something else entirely that you're not trying to communicate. All right, and these are just some ways that you can kind of keep this in mind. Make sure that your clothes are clean and they're properly laundered. I know that sounds a little silly. However, I'm sure that you have woken up in the morning and thought, what am I going to wear? This looks good, thrown it on. And maybe you have something important that day going on and you shouldn't have worn it and you realize it far too late. That has two parts. That's planning on your part, but it also is making sure that your clothes are properly laundered. Make sure your hair and your nails are neat. That seems like a little thing, and I know I'm fully aware of the fact that lots of people like the way chipped nail polish looks. And lots of people, bite their fingernails. I was horrible about that. I feel your pain. I sing that song, I know. But these are just things that keep you from looking as neat as you might otherwise look. Minimal jewelry. If you're going on a job interview, or if you're working a function, or if you're somewhere that you're going to be doing different things for people, it really is not a good idea to be covered from head to toe in jewelry. If you are...
the big dangly earrings,
right.
Y'all know,
Well, and the other thing too I want you to consider, and here again, I'm not telling you that you shouldn't be who you are and that you should not take advantage of all of the ways that you can enhance your appearance. I certainly am not suggesting that. But you do need to be mindful that if you have gauges in your ears and you have holes that are 1 inch wide, some people are a little startled by that. And you don't want, again, to handicap yourself with things you can control. You don't want to walk into a job interview and somebody automatically make an assessment of you based on your jewelry. Don't leave your nose ring in. I don't even know if people wear nose rings anymore. I don't see them very often. But don't do that. It's not necessary. You don't have to. You're not compromising who you are in an attempt to secure a job or secure a position with something that you otherwise wouldn't get. Here's one thing I strongly encourage all of you, men and women, to consider. Please be mindful of the application of your fragrance. That lotions are lovely, colognes are fantastic, perfumes are glorious. But some people, like myself, are incredibly allergic to it. And when you walk into my office and your cologne gives me a headache in 30 seconds, I don't hear a word you say. I mean, that is the honest truth. It's not that I don't think you're lovely. It's just I'm in pain. Don't do that to yourself. Don't handicap yourself with things you can control. Just don't wear as much, or leave it off for that day if you're going into a situation that you don't have any idea what the person there is reactive to. And then if you are male or female, a bag only for essentials. If you're going into a job interview, you probably don't want to drag your backpack. You probably don't want to drag your basketball stuff in there. Ladies, you probably don't want to take the biggest purse you own. Make certain that the things that you take into an interview are only for essentials. Amy, do you have anything to add to all of that?
The one thing especially about the bags, I have even seen this here at Shelton, and I wanted to like wrap the cord around his neck, but he had his phone plugged in, charging, waiting on an interview, right? I did not say anything to him. At that point, it was absolutely too late. My thought on cell phones in an interview is leave it in your car, leave it at your house, don't even take it in, because the first thing that's gonna happen is, oh, I thought I turned it off, and it's ringing. You don't wanna have that happen in any kind of social situation, a dinner, a lunch, something like we're kind of simulating today. Anything that you're gonna go to, if your boss invites you just to go to lunch with them, you don't want to take your phone because you don't want to, we are all so connected to our phones right now, you don't want to be checking it, even if you don't mean to. A lot of kids will even just pick up their phone and check it. They don't even really need to check it, but we're all so connected to that. So in any kind of social situation or interview situation, my advice is to leave your cell phone away. And if you have to, if something is going on in your life, like someone is sick in your family, any life circumstance, if you have to have your phone out for that reason, communicate that to someone and say, you know what, I have this going on. You don't have to tell them. I have a circumstance that I may need to use my phone. So if you don't mind, I'm going to leave it on the table so that if it rings, I'm going to be able to answer.
And we're going to cover more cell phone stuff in just a little while. Where did our clothing slide go? Oh,
That's just the pictures. We do all four, just to get through quickly.
So you guys have seen this in the hall. So when you're going to a social setting, I mean, these are not actual Shelton students. I grabbed these off the internet. However, they could be because y'all seen them all. But you want to be sure that you're dressed, even though ripped jeans are the thing, when you go to something that is important and you're trying to make that impression, that first impression, you don't want to wear things like that. You want to make sure that your undergarments, either case, underwear, bra straps, are covered up. Obviously, you know, hoodies are great and everybody loves them, but you want to make sure that you're putting forward your best impression. We do have a career closet here, so if you need anything as far as even just a collared shirt, pair of khaki pants, something like that, we can definitely help you. As far as dress, for any kind of situation, you know, like Lisa said, keeping it simple, you want to know that you are representing Shelton State while you're here, your company when you graduate and hold that job. Obviously, neat and clean are the best. Don't reveal too much. Now, revealing too much can be, oh, I meant to reveal too much, or I gained a little bit of weight and I'm revealing too much. Now, when I went to college, I gained a couple of pounds just because I was away from home. I ate out more. I wasn't playing sports anymore. And some of the things, my suits became ill-fitting just because I gained weight and I did not have the right size clothing. So you want to be sure before you go into any situation and you're having to wear clothes that you don't normally wear, make sure to try those on before. If you need help with any of those kind of items, we definitely have it. But make sure that you're not revealing too much, maybe because it's not fitted correctly or it's just a little bit too low cut or whatever the case may be. Dress for the time of day. Obviously, I had a coworker the other day that put on some dangly earrings and she's like, now these look like I'm going out honky-tonkin', don't they? So, you know, you don't want to wear your honky-tonkin' earrings to your daytime lunch. And obviously you don't want to wear a formal type dress to a lunch. Make sure that you're respectful of the time of day. And also, don't be a fashion victim. And by that I mean, the ripped jeans are a thing right now. For a while, do y'all remember when kind of the tuxedo look was in for women? You know, like they had those shiny tuxedo kind of thing. Don't be a fashion victim. Wear something simple, like Lisa said, that doesn't call attention to yourself, where maybe you don't want that. Now, if you were trying to be a fashion designer or something like that, totally different situation. But you don't want, just in a regular day, you don't want to do that.
So we're going to make a hard turn here. I know that earlier, Q and Veronica and Anika took your orders and they talked to you and asked you what you wanted. How many of you got exactly what you wanted? Okay, so who had some mistakes in their order? Yeah, okay, so Q, what were the responses? Can you tell us, or don't embarrass anybody, like don't say anything, but what were the responses? I don't want anybody to feel like we're singling them out.
Everyone handled it well, actually.
Awesome.
Everyone handled it well, it's cute, this thing right here.
Fantastic.
And so everyone handled it very well.
Good deal.
Hey, please, nothing like that, everyone did it.
Good. These are the, we laugh.
He said, can he have his cookie?
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't have a cookie?
Oh, I thought somebody said, can I have my cookie? Okay, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
See, I'm telling you, I'm getting old, but hearing is
That's
going.
it. The reason that we did that, the reason that some of you didn't get exactly what you wanted was for that very reason, for us to kind of point out that even something like this requires please and thank you and manners, and to acknowledge that someone might have made a mistake, and that someone not giving you roast beef instead of turkey is not the end of the world, and your response should acknowledge that it's okay. And that's kind of some of the things that Amy's rather gonna cover with you next. We're gonna zip through these slides because there are a lot of them. But having a meal together, especially if you are with someone that you may work for or with someday, that meal together is very important. It serves as an interview sometimes. It also serves to let someone know how you behave and respond socially. It's just an important time, and there are things that you need to know prior to being a part of that so that you participate in that successfully and that you are very well prepared. So like I said, there's a lot of these slides. We're going to go through them rather quickly, but keep in mind that you can get this information from us at a later time so that you can study it more thoroughly. But pay attention to what you can, and then we'll go from there, okay?
Okay, so obviously in a lunch situation or dinner or whatever, because guess what? Not so much in education where we are, but in business and industry, you are taken out and you eat out a lot. So whether it's lunch, whether it's dinner with a client, and some of you, how many of you are planning on going to a four-year school? A lot of companies recruit from four-year schools, and it's more of a dining, reception type atmosphere. They take you out to dinner, maybe here in Tuscaloosa, Chuck's Fish is a big place for them to take you. Maybe you have a reception kind of thing, maybe you have a dinner, but they're figuring things out about you at that point before they interview you the next day. They see your personality, all of those different types of things. But when you get somewhere to a restaurant, you want to engage in small talk. What's something you would want to talk about in small talk?
What it is for basketball, then you got to talk about basketball at school, people like business, talk about the business.
Talk about the business, talk about who you are, hey, how's it going, kind of basic stuff. There, obviously, you want to have some small talk before you jump right into the meal. Obviously, you want to be aware of your posture, not those crossed arms, that kind of thing. Maintain eye contact, don't be constantly looking away. Again, stay away from your phone. Participate in the conversation. If someone is talking, don't just sit there. Participate. Have something to say, but don't just talk to be talking. If you have something to interject, definitely say it. And ask questions. Asking questions and asking about someone else shows them that you are interested in them. You're not just there for yourself. You're actually interested in what they have to say. And at the end of the meal, you want to summarize the key points, and you want to end on a social note. Maybe we can talk, maybe we can see each other later when you want to have dinner again, that kind of thing, okay? So before you arrive, that's kind of walking through how you would want to have conversation. But before you arrive, you want to be sure of where the location is and drive by prior to the event. Things in Tuscaloosa change so much. Restaurants pop up here, then they're gone the next day. A lot of times, like my friends will call and say, hey, do you want to go to there's some new hamburger place, right? And I think the people that own Avenue Pub, if you even know where that is, on this new hamburger place. I have no idea where it is, so I would totally have to look it up. But if I were going there for a business lunch, I would maybe want to ride by and make sure I know where it is before I go, so that I'm not late, because you do not want to be late, especially if it's something for business. If you must cancel, call immediately and let someone know. Don't show up for an event. And if you're running late, call to let them know. And especially if you can't get them, call the restaurant, because they may have left their phone in the car. Make sure that you call the restaurant and try to let the restaurant know that you will not be able to be there for that event. just a note on professionalism, and this is kind of a whole different subject, but while we're talking about professionalism and meeting people and getting to know people and that kind of thing, when you communicate, this is an email that I received, an actual email that I received from a student. This student knows how to read, this student knows how to write. This is nothing, I have another example just today, very much like this. Make sure that when you, or if you're texting, if you're emailing, make sure that you actually use words. And my kids now are totally younger than y'all, but my 6-year-old looked at me the other day and said, JK. And I'm like, just kidding, right? You don't get into a practice of using those kind of words while you're in school, because you don't want to say that in a social situation with a business or anything like that. You want to be sure that when you're being recruited by a company, when you are in those kind of situations, that you are professional. So at the table, let's talk about the table for a minute. How many of you actually know how to set a table? Like if I said, okay, so. Okay, so who is like, yes, I eat with my grandmother every Sunday. She made me set the table. I know how to set the table. Who's that? Anybody? Anybody want to give it a shot? I gotta have a volunteer. Who's gonna be the volunteer? Come on up. Let's try.
You can do it. Listen, I'm 42 and it messes with me every time I try. Every time.
It's okay. You know what? You're trying and nobody else is.
Oh man, I just saw all those plates come out too. That made me a little nervous for you. Oh, dear, a goblet too. There you go. Okay.
Okay. Now don't be laughing at him because nobody else is trying. You do what you think.
I'm saying for right.
Oh yeah. Mhm. And you don't have to use all those.
Okay.
You can just use which one.
That's where I would get tripped up bad.
Very close.
Yeah.
Very close. All of this is really good. Let's move this over here. Just that one over here. Look at that. All right, I'm going to kind of pass these out, and this is just a handout with some of the things we're going to talk about on it, so that you can kind of take this with you. I'm just going to put a couple on this table, and we all just kind of pass these at this table and the next table. Okay, so you can see from this that the first thing you want to do is you want to put the napkin in your lap. You want to put the napkin in your lap, okay? So obviously you don't want to wear it around your neck, anything like that. You want to have it in your lap. Also, when we're using the utensils, we want to work from the outside and work our way in. So on this diagram, you can see how utensils are to be laid out. And you'll want to work, this would be, most of the time in a situation, this would be your salad fork. This is what you would eat your salad with. and this is what you would eat your main course with. So you want to work from the outside in on your utensils. Bread and salads are always on your left and drinks are on your right. Now, with saying this, have any of you ever been to a banquet or something like and you're at like big tables of 6 or 8 and you're like, which one's my drink? Where's my bread? You know, it's all on the table. There's lots of plates and napkins. One thing you can do is when you get there, you can just do like make a B and a D with your fingers. And you know that when you, so everybody do that, B and D with your fingers. All right, kind of put it down like it's on your plate. The hand that makes the B is where the bread goes. So if you see over here, he has a plate on the left side at the top. That's where your bread would go. That would be your bread plate. And your D is where all of your liquids or your drink goes. So if you're sitting just like you, yep, you got it. So when you're sitting down at a banquet table and people are like, where's my tea? Which one's my water? You're like, just put your hands down in your lap and be like, I got it, this is my drink. You know, it really is helpful because especially when you have all of those plates and all of that water, sometimes it is very confusing as to which one belongs to which person. So that's a little tip on that so that you know. Obviously, do not use your cell phone if you're at the table unless it is an absolute emergency and you need to let someone know ahead of time. If a bread basket is in front of you, you offer it to the person on the left, and then you offer it to the person on the left, then you take a piece and pass it to the right. So so if we were a big happy family here, right, and we were passing it, we're going to offer it to the person on the left, and then we take it, and then we pass it to the right. So that's how you pass family style. So everything is going around the table the same way instead of this person's gotten the mashed potatoes, this person's gotten the bread, whatever. Everything is passed that way. The bread and butter plate is to your left. We just talked about that. Bread is a tricky thing. You know, you've seen people that have picked up pieces of bread and I mean, it's like an animal. I mean, it takes them a minute to rip it off, or, you know, the bread's hard, whatever. The way that you eat bread in a social situation is you break off a bite-sized piece, put it in your mouth, butter it if you like butter, put it in your mouth, chew it, and then have another piece. You don't, you know, bite the bread off like that. Now, I mean, I know, look, I have 3 kids. I'm just lucky to like scarf something down every night. They ate all the casserole before I even got any last night. So I understand like fending for yourself and having a big family and whatever. We're talking really about the social situations here. The main thing I can tell you to do at the table is practice. You know, so how many of you have families that sit down and have dinner? Some do. Very few families actually sit down and have dinner. I mean, I know it's very hard for us between some kids that swim, some kids that basketball. We just sit down and throw food, and luckily everybody eats, right? It is very hard to practice this. So keep this. Look it up on Google before you go somewhere. Also, watch. So usually someone is going to have invited you to the function. Make sure that you watch other people and see what they're doing. If they're doing something wrong, obviously don't do it. But someone that you trust at that table, watch and see what they're doing and follow their lead. Okay, so today you placed orders, and obviously you knew exactly what we were having, right? So there was no way around it. You were getting Subway. It just depended on what you got. But you don't want to be that person that goes out at a business lunch or even lunch with family or really anybody. Somebody just invites you to lunch. You don't want to say, oh, I'll have the filet and lobster, right? You want to have a medium-priced entree, and a good way to do that is to kind of gauge what the other person is having. Say, hey, did I ask you? You've been here before. I may not have been there before, you know. You've been there before. I haven't been here before. What's your favorite thing on the menu, or what will you be ordering today? And, you know, if they're ordering the chicken, we need to sit with the chicken or something like that. Another thing is you need to know what food you are going to order. If you've never eaten lobster, and maybe it is an opportunity, everybody at the table is having steak and lobster, And that happens, right? Companies will pay for things like that, especially if they want to recruit you, that kind of thing. If you've never eaten lobster, that is not the time to try it, because it's a hard dish sometimes to eat. Know what you're going to eat, and like, especially lasagna, spaghetti, how messy are those, right? You don't want to eat those on a first date, so because you don't want it all over, you don't want it all over them, so you don't want to eat that at a business type lunch. Always have bite-sized pieces of an appetizer and eat them with a fork if it is available. So let's talk a little bit about appetizers and reception type food. How many of you have been to a reception before? Right, we all have. How hard is it to like manage a drink, a piece of cake, all the food, everything? You know, you're like, what do I do with all this? The main thing with that is try to do one or the other. You know, have a drink, then maybe have a piece of cake. Don't try to balance it all, because that is something that is a very, very hard skill to do, and most people cannot do it. Most people can't hold the plate and the drink and everything, so be very careful with that. Place a soup spoon into the soup and spoon away from you. How many of you eat soup like this? I do. I mean, right? Yeah. And how many of you put crackers or cornbread or something in the soup? I do too, right? Vegetable soup, I like my cornbread in the soup. I eat it like that. That is not appropriate etiquette for a dinner. Also, when you are using a spoon, you spoon it away from you, not towards you. And those are things too that a lot of people probably are not going to do. But if you can remember to do that, that's really great as well. When you have finished, you want to put the spoon on the saucer or in the bowl at the like 4 o'clock, so that they know, so that your waiter knows to pick that up. That's how they know to pick those things up from you. The food and salad is to the left of your place settings. So obviously that's your salad to the left. If you use your knife to cut your salad, leave it on the salad plate. That doesn't come back. The server starts to put it on the table. Ask him or her to bring you a clean knife instead. Most places they are going to know. Another thing that most wait staff know when you are finished because of the way you lay your place setting, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But one thing, don't ever start cleaning your plate. Like, I know at home, like when my kids are done, like I'm like cleaning the plates onto each other so I don't have to do it all at the end. But at a restaurant, they like cringe if somebody is like, you know, you're done, so I'm going to take this and then I'm going to clean it off onto his plate, and stacking up the dishes for the server. That's not necessary. You don't have to do that. That is their job. So don't clean off plates onto each other and like stack a whole pile of them up on the end of the table. Wait until your hostess indicates that it's time to eat. So if we're all at a table, this is our table, and you know, he is our hostess, and he is our host for the evening, and we want to wait till all the food arrives and he begins to eat. That is our cue that it's time to eat, okay? So you want to be sure that you're eating. As soon as the food sits down, even if you are starving, don't start eating. In any situation, I know it's hard, right? But in any situation, one of the main things you want to do is make sure, especially when someone else has invited you, that the food is not the main thing you are there for. Are you there today? Obviously, I know you guys are all hungry. It's lunchtime, that kind of thing. But when you go on a business lunch or dinner, the conversation that you have that we talked about in the beginning is the most important thing. The food is the least important thing. Make sure that you're engaged in the conversation, you're asking questions, those kind of things. If you can do that, at the end, if you are still hungry, go by McDonald's and eat all you want, right? But make sure that you are not just there for the food, face down, eating. You want to be engaged in that conversation. Obviously, also, you want to cut one bite of food at a time. You don't want to, you know, be like a 4-year-old and cut the whole steak up or piece of chicken up into little pieces. You cut one piece at a time. And that's also going to help you be able to have that conversation, because it's not as easy to be able to just shove in your mouth like that. Now this is one I'm also guilty of. Do not dip your bread in sauce unless the host says it is acceptable, and then break a piece off and use your fork. You know, like that last piece of juice or whatever on your plate, and you just want to take the bread and like put it in it. Does anybody else do that? You know, like you got a sauce or something good on your plate, and you want to just take your bread and put it in it and then eat it. No, you don't do that. I do it. And so you do not want to do that. That is not a good thing. I was at dinner with some friends one night, and the guy literally, I mean, talk about a clean plate. The plate was absolutely clean. When, I mean, like took bread and like made sure, I mean, there was nothing left on the plate. You don't want to do that. If you want to eat everything on your plate, that's acceptable, but make sure that that is not your main goal. Typically, you're not going to want to pick up a bone and eat it with your fingers, like even if it's a chicken leg or something like that. Again, that's one of those things that's hard to eat, and so you want to probably don't want to eat that anyway, but you don't want to, you know, pick up a bone and eat it that way. And at the end of the meal, even if you have done what you're supposed to, you've talked to the whoever it is that you're with, you do not want to ask for a doggy bag. Now, if I invite you out to lunch and we go have lunch, that's perfectly fine in a social situation, but especially at a banquet kind of style dinner or something that somebody's invited you to, you don't want to do that.
All right, we gotta pick up the pace.
Okay. Okay, so always pass the food to the right. Another thing, how many of you know how to pass the salt and pepper? They are a married couple. They are always passed together. So if y'all are out, somebody wants the salt, they get the salt and pepper together. I'm trying to think what's important. If you drop a utensil, don't pick it up, just tell the server. Also, signal the server by just gently raising your hand or motioning to them, like you don't have to snap or clap or hey, come over here. You know, you've seen that. Don't do that. Just raise your hand. If they are professional, they know. If you have finished eating, the way that you know to tell people that you are finished eating is put the utensils at the 4 o'clock position, which means like if this is the plate, put them across the plate. That tells the server that you are finished and you want them to pick up your plate. If you spill food, place the napkin over it and get the server's attention. They will help you. If you must remove something from your mouth, I know it's gross, but put it out the same way you put it in. So if you put something in your mouth with a fork and it's like a piece of gristle or something, I know it's gross, but you take it out with the fork. And where do you put it? On the plate. Why do you put it on the plate and not in the napkin? Because that's where it came from. Very good. Because, and two, if you put it in your napkin, here's what's going to happen. It's in your napkin. You go, you know, put it in your napkin. When you pick it up, it's going to roll back down, and it's even more embarrassing. So you don't want to do that. You want to be sure that you just put it back on your plate. And I know that's gross, but that's just the way it is. Obviously, don't blow your nose at the table. When you leave the table, you want to put it to the left of your place setting. A lot of people want to put it in their chair. Why would you not want to put it in your chair? It is dirty. Chairs are dirty. How many times do you think chairs in restaurants get cleaned? Never. How many times do you think chairs here at Shelton get cleaned? Never. I don't know. Maybe these get wiped down. But a lot of fabric chairs, I bet they haven't been cleaned, right? So you don't want to put a napkin that you're going to use on your mouth in a chair. You want to put it on the table with the tablecloth does get cleaned. And you don't want to turn a glass upside. Have you seen people turn glasses upside down to say they don't want something? You don't do that. You just leave it upright and tell them that you don't want something. Sometimes, you know, dessert is omitted, and if you don't want dessert, that's perfectly fine. But if a dessert is offered, you may accept, you know, if you want that dessert. You may use a fork or a spoon or both to eat pie or ice cream, and you use your fingers to eat grapes, berries, but larger fruit should be, you know, quartered with your knife. A lot of times you will see, like in your diagram, you'll see a spoon and a fork at the top. All of these others, by the time you're done with your meal, these will have been used and taken away. So you slide the fork down into the fork position, and you slide the spoon down into the spoon position, and you're able to use it that way. Those are for your dessert. Any of you drink tea? Hot tea? No, okay. Well, we'll talk about that another time then. Okay, so when the meal is over, you always want to put your silverware in that closed position, you know, across your plate. Like I told you, put the napkin on the table to the left of your plate and push the chair in. Main thing I will say is thank your host. And the person who does the inviting, the company, whatever, unless they tell you it is Dutch treat to start with, does the paying. They should pay for your meal.
Everybody knows what Dutch treat is, right? I had a student ask me that last year.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
Yeah.
It's when someone
Pay for
else, you pay for yourself.
Everyone pays to their own.
Okay. Tipping. So just really quick, if you've never been anywhere like a fancy place, sometimes there will be a coat attendant. You would tip them for your coat, to place your coat there. Obviously, also valet, you would want to tip them, and 15% to 20% to the waiter or waitress. So if any of you have ever waited tables, you definitely know the importance of that. Now, I am a big fan of a written thank you note, but if you do not do the written thank you notes, email a thank you note to your host to thank them for having you, because they went to the trouble of inviting you, having you there, and having that conversation with you. Obviously, it also gives you another reason to make another contact with them. It may be the reason they invited you there was to recruit you to their company. You definitely want to have another contact with them because you want to tell them you are still interested in that position and you're willing to move to Atlanta or wherever it is for that job.
All right, so very quickly in the last minutes that we have together, I want to wrap up with 3 different things, okay? We've talked a lot about the meal, we've talked about that one particular event and your manners that you would have within the context of that event, or being invited somewhere, or being someone's guest. But I want to talk with you just briefly about the habits that you have every single day, because those contribute to what you're going to do at those special events. Your habits really tell your story. And so you want to make sure that those habits are positive ones and that they convey a positive message about who you are, and it lets somebody know that they want to be around you. So we're going to talk very quickly about cell phone etiquette. We're going to talk about your social media etiquette. We're also going to talk about respect for one another and your instructors and those around you in your classroom. So very quickly, your cell phones. Like Amy said to you earlier very quickly about this, we've all become very, very attached to our cell phones. We have a very complicated time putting them down for extended periods of time, and it becomes very complicated very quickly. If you are in a restaurant, invariably, whether you're in a business situation or a social situation, I would encourage all of you to be selective about when you use that, because what you communicate by staying on your phone is that you're not invested or interested in who you are sharing that meal with. And even though that's likely not at all what you are trying to say to the person that you are sharing time with, that's exactly what you say through those nonverbal communications and cues. So please be very selective about when you use your phone when you're with your friends, not just at a meal, but anytime. Same thing is true in a building, not just in terms of who you're with, but also your tone and your volume. How many of you have been at a doctor's office or downstairs in the atrium or just somewhere and you think, I know exactly what's going on in their lives because I hear every word they're saying. People have become very loud when they speak. They are not necessarily mindful of who's around them. And it isn't always just because someone might hear your business, it's just because it's a matter of being pleasant to be around. So make certain that you are mindful and watching your tone and your volume when you are using your phone in public places. If you're at an event, you need to turn your phone off. For example, the theater downstairs. There are lots of people who think they can sneak a peek at their phone or that nobody hears it. There's typically, there's a reason why you should turn your phones off at an event. One is out of respect for the people who are around you, but also out of respect for what's happening at whatever the event is. Enjoy that event. Be a participant. Be in that moment. And I know these all sound like simple, elementary things, but it's things that we really don't often consider because we have grown so accustomed to having that phone in our hand. And in class, I don't know why you're on your phone in class. That plays a whole bigger part. We'll go to that in just a second. For social media, your networking sites, this is back to that networking that Amy mentioned to you earlier. Social networking accomplishes the same goal in many ways. You're reaching out and staying connected to people who not only are your friends, but who also can support you in terms of your career. And so these social networking sites should work for you and absolutely not against you. Do not think for one moment that your potential employers are not checking your social media sites. They are checking it now more often than ever. Do not think that just because something disappears after a short period of time that it is not saved somewhere else. If you have ever put something out there onto the World Wide Web, then you can rest assured that it can be located and found. Make certain that you're making wise decisions about what those things are that can be discovered about you. Limit the time that you spend on social networks. Again, I know that this is something I am equally as guilty of this as anyone else. I am on social networks all the time by virtue of the fact that it's what I do all day, but also because when I leave here at night, that's how I get my news, it's how I communicate with friends. I am completely wrapped up just like you are in social networking and social media, but we all need to have a healthy balance of what we're doing. We need to read a book. We need to be doing other things, and we need to be communicating with one another, so just be mindful of that. Please don't share important information. I can't tell you the number of times. I know you guys are excited about getting a new apartment. I know you're thrilled about getting a new car. Don't post your license tags. Don't post your addresses. Don't post things that people can locate you on an individual basis using information that you have personally shared. Protect yourself. Think of yourself as your brand. You know, you've got that Alabama shirt on. I'm always reminded of brand when I see that Alabama A or when I see our dome here at Shelton State. We protect that brand. We want it to be used well and wisely and the right way for a reason. That's the same thing that you guys need to think about in terms of social media. You're projecting your brand out into the world. So make certain that you are protective of that and that you're making wise decisions about what that looks like. Please don't engage in arguments or private conversations online. If you're having an issue with a friend or a loved one or a spouse or whoever, or if you're in a political argument, please back away from that. Just consider that all of those things are conveying a message, even if it's not the one that you're communicating in that moment. Don't tag incriminating photos of yourself or of others, and you need to monitor the pictures that other people are tagging of you. Again, this is so critical. I cannot tell you how important it is that you know the image that is being conveyed out into the world on your behalf. In the classroom, we talked about this a good bit. Be prompt. You're there to learn. Arriving late is a distraction for others. It's just leaving you out in the cold in terms of what you need to know that you've missed already. Attend regularly. Your class material is covered quickly. If you have to miss, please be in communication with your instructor. I also encourage all of you to accept responsibility. I know we've all been guilty of doing this. I did it when I was your age. You know, that teacher's horrible. That instructor didn't give me the right notes. They changed the material from the test to the notes, whatever. Accept responsibility. Some things will never be your responsibility. Some things will always be your responsibility. Acknowledge the difference and recognize when you're the one at fault and you're the one that needs to make the change to do better and improve. Don't argue. How many of you have been in a classroom where somebody gets into an altercation or an argument with another student or with their instructor and it sets everybody on edge? Please be respectful in expressing your own opinions. Everybody has a right to their own opinions. We need to understand that, appreciate that, and accept that, and do that in a healthy way. The other thing too, and this is the bottom line about every bit of this that we've talked to you about in terms of manners, you need to be the example. You need to be the one that's setting the tone, doing the right thing, even when nobody's looking and even when nobody else is. You need to be the person making the choice that everybody else needs to see. If you're the example and setting the tone, then you're winning the battle all by yourself. Okay? Got it right on those at 2:30, got it all in there. Questions?
All right, let's thank Ms. Lisa and Ms. Amy. Before you leave, you have the little half sheet that has the agenda on the back of it. There's an evaluation. Although you may not feel like filling it out, I need every last one of you to fill one out for me, okay? I have 25 people. I should have at least 25 evaluations, okay? If you didn't sign in, please sign in. That lets us know that you were here. And then before you leave, I need to see Trey Todd, Dalton Sutherland, Keenan Harris, and Aaliyah Prue before you leave. And this presentation was very important because in January, there will be the Realizing the Dream initiative. That's a partnership between Shelton State, the University of Alabama, and Stillman College. And we will have 2 student representatives, hopefully, that will be a part of that Realizing the Dream initiative. And a part of that is there's a banquet the night before the concert. So whoever that representative is will attend the banquet, and then we'll have to speak at the concert. Don't worry, I give you a script. We give you a script, but if you're not comfortable speaking, then that's not going to be the opportunity for you. The second opportunity in that series is having lunch or dinner with whoever we bring in as our lecture series. And we've had people like Colin Powell, Lisa Wright, Bryce, we had Kirk Franklin at the concert last year. And so it's a really great opportunity. So the stuff that they told you about today is actually stuff you're going to need to do, to know how to do. Because Ms. Q, although she's going to be there, I'm not going to be able to sit with you and tell you, baby, start with that form over there. You have to know it for yourself. Okay, because I'll be somewhere else. But thank you for coming. Once you've done your evaluation, if you'll just pass it to the end of your table and I'll collect them as you leave. And don't forget those 4 people come see you.